What is up? What is up, everybody? Trusty 8 Podcast. We're here today with Look at the Trees.
What's up,
Thank you for
everybody?
coming down, friend.
What's happening? Good to be here.
Yeah, it is a beautiful day. Sunday. No football for me. Are you a football fan?
Nah, not really. The only sports I really do is like MMA.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's, there's a lot to learn from MMA. Like, not just the competition of it, but you can also learn a lot as far as like self defense and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I think like jujitsu is a highly valuable skill to learn. Like just even a little bit, just basic jujitsu is a great thing to know as a female and as anybody really.
For sure. Um, do you work in a dojo? I guess is what I'm looking the word I'm looking for.
No, I don't do really any kind of training anymore, but I used to, and like I had some training in the military and stuff like that.
Oh, all right, nice. Got my there we go. Take that one down. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the army.
Okay, how long?
I was in 4 years active and 4 years inactive reserve.
Gotcha. Nice. Well, thank you for your service. I know
You're
some
welcome.
people appreciate that, some people hate it, but I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I was never in the military myself. I've got a couple of good friends who are. Um, I was trying to join the National Guard a couple years ago, and they kind of just blew me off. So yeah, going in different avenues, but
Right, and luckily some of the more visual wars that we've been in are kind of winding down. Like we got out of Afghanistan a little bit. I mean, they act like we're completely out of there, but we're not, you know. And we're involved with Ukraine. Like I've seen a lot of videos there, and I've heard some like Southern accents from America yelling shit on the front lines in Ukraine. So I know there's people there.
right, yeah, there definitely are. I mean, we've got interestingly enough, I think America's got to be one of the nosiest nations. Like we seem to just have people everywhere for no apparent reason.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like you don't know until some shit kicks off and a bunch of special forces get ambushed or something in Syria, and then you're like, Syria, what the fuck are we doing in Syria? Like, yeah, we've been there for 12 years, but like you don't know till you know.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, going off on tangents here, but it's nice to meet you. Bro. Do you so you're creating content, right? Do you want to tell people about the rips and sips, and we'll show later on the show too. But been watching those.
Yeah. Rips and Sips, honestly, my channel started off as kind of I was trying to be a more LGBTQ slash minority slash non-believer outdoor channel to because I noticed a lot of YouTube like bushcraft and survival training shows or programs, whatever, are mostly Christian oriented, and there's always some kind of God bless you or all kinds of they throw in some bullshit, like a Bible lesson with learning how to make a fire or whatever, and it's like I'm not trying to hear that shit, and I seen it so often I just decided I was gonna make a channel of my own, and then it primarily is identifying mushrooms right now, like that's part of a passion of mine. So I started making videos using the field manual and going through and showing step by step how to identify them and make a spore print and make sure you're not poisoning yourself. And then the weather got cold, so the mushrooms were gone. So I started doing the rips and sips, and it kind of just got out of control from there. I just made a whole bunch of those.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I love forging. I like the what you're talking about. The idea of like that you can have bushcraft, but it's not how would you say, like politically charged. Like there is a lot of like these guys tend to seem to be like wacky conspiracy theorists and right wingers most
Yeah,
of the time, and you really don't need that to have survivalism. So that's
it gets painful, man. It gets painful, and it's like not even. I mean, most of my bushcraft portions, I'm not saying anything about atheism. There might be one or two that I say some kind of something about it, but most of the time I'm just showing the thing. I'm not trying to give a lesson to or for or against a god. I'm just trying to show a thing. Like I'm not trying to give a Bible lesson or an atheism lesson. I'm just trying to say, hey, here's how you do this thing without any of that bullshit. So
all right. So going there, you mentioned you were from a I don't know, Episcopalian. Was it an Episcopalian church or a Baptist church?
Baptist.
Baptist. Okay, sorry, I got that one wrong. I know
Uh,
you said that. Do you want to talk about your history with religion?
sure. I was brought up. Um, it's honestly, it's like literally maybe 2 blocks away from me right now. Like the little church I was brought up in, and it was primarily a bunch of older white folks preaching a lot of racism, a lot of bigotry towards everyone. So I was kind of raised uh, in that whatever you would call it, like that denomination of Christianity, to where they were big on bigotry and making everybody the other. And as small as my town's literally like a mile in diameter, and there's 6 or 7 churches in it. Like they're everywhere, and there aren't even that many people here.
That's rough. So you're surrounded by the creationists. Oh,
Oh,
are your parents still involved, or were they involved heavily in the church?
my mother is. My father wasn't. He was pretty much a non-believer, and but he's in a nursing home now, so he gets he's got like Alzheimer's and brain damage from different uh, events in his life, and so they can push that shit on him in that nursing home because they have like a church that will come over there and take all the old people up and uh, evangelize to them. So he may believe it now, but he's not in his right state of mind. My mom's just got back from church, from that very church I was talking about, and I heard her pull in not that long ago.
Okay, nice. So you still have a functional relationship with them. That's good. Like
Yeah,
it's not something that's harmed your relationship.
well,
Have you come out
it definitely
publicly?
it definitely put the strain on my mother and I's relationship, and it's basically um my it really put a strain on her and my brother's relationship, to where they really don't speak that much anymore. So it's and my mom, there's a whole rabbit hole to go down there, but like uh it definitely does affect me because she will still try to wedge in God to me whenever she thinks she can. Like I had an accident that put me in the hospital a while back, and when she had me like stuck in a hospital bed and I couldn't move, she started like trying to tell me that God like was trying to tell me something and all this bullshit. And I told her like, Mom, I will have the nurses remove you from my room if you don't stop that. Like I had to tell her like to just stop talking to me about it because I didn't want to hear it.
Oh yeah, I get that. That's one of the harsh ones. Like, I'm staying with my mom currently too, and yeah, I mean, I've I deconverted. Well, I mean, I came out publicly, I should say, like several years ago. But my mom has really recently gotten back into the church in a big way, and so when I came back uh, last year, um, and I went homeless again, she decided it was time to preach to me, and that's kind of just been ongoing. And it's like, man, like they think, because you're down that you're going to be more susceptible to the religion, I guess, is kind of the way they're looking at it. And
I mean,
so
just look at the number of Christians or Muslims, believers in general, that are in prison. You know what I mean? Like those people were down on their luck, uh, having a rough go at it, and they prey on them, and they'll give them like I had. The only reason I know this is because this this asshole up at the town store was trying to evangelize to me, and he offered me a Bible that was like quote unquote dumbed down for prisoners because he looked at me and saw the tattoos and shit and just thought I was an inmate or something. And I was like, no thanks, dude. I can read, like, fuck you, you know, and I walked out of his store. But like he was trying to not just give me a Bible, but one specifically for prisoners.
but I've never heard of that. I mean, I've seen the hotel Bibles, which are usually left there by there's a denomination I'm trying to think of, and I can't think of it.
The Gideon.
The Gideon, yes, the Gideon Bible is in all the hotels. Is
Yeah.
that is there something?
I
Is there
wish I would have calmed down enough to take the Bible from him. I would, like, looking back on it, I lost my cool. It was well over 15 years ago. So like I was a younger man at the time and a little more quick to tell somebody to eat shit. So I was just like, fuck you, man. Walked out and didn't want to spend money in his store, But now I would have liked to take the book just to compare it to another Bible and see what it is. But I never looked at it.
got you? So how long ago did you deconvert, or did you decide or realize that you weren't into religion?
It would have been probably uh late 90s, probably like 1998. I would say I was I was calling myself an agnostic. When I was in the army, I had just figured out what agnostic meant. One of my team leaders, one of my team leaders blew my mind in the army. He basically explained to me that, like, hey man, like, because I told him I was having doubts about all this religious upbringing I had, and he was like a Japanese American, so he was a race that I would have normally been, uh, whatever, racist towards. And but I was really close with him, and he like talked to me about religion. He's like, hey, like they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. Like maybe they're all full of shit. And it was just like once that door opened in my mind, it was like, holy fuck, like he's right, like. And then it was like I went down the line of all the Krishna, Buddha, all of it. Like I went running through all these books and reading stuff, and then finally it was probably 1999, probably a year later after I had left. I was in Southeast Asia with that guy, and I had left that duty station and arrived at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And there is where I actually called myself an atheist and actually got it put on my dog tags, and it actually meant something to me. So it would have been probably about 1999.
Okay, that's been a while back then.
Yeah. I'm old stuff.
Did you come out? Well, obviously you had to, like you said, you changed your information with the military. But did you come out to like friends and family at that time, or did it take a while? Was there a process behind that?
It took me a while because I honestly, agnostic was the first term. That was what that team leader referred to it as. So I grabbed onto that label and I identified as that. And then later on, um, it would have probably been 2001. I started seeing the atheist experience. I actually like first got on YouTube and started. I googled, or I searched atheist, and that's what came up. And I started watching those, and it like Tracy Harris and Jen Peoples and Jeff D and eventually Matt Dillahunty. Like those are the ones that pretty much solidified it with me that like, oh, I'm an atheist. I'm an agnostic atheist is what I would have considered myself then. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely can relate with that. I mean, name drop it. I mean, Matt Dillahunty, Tracy Harris, I think is like one of the best atheist debate teams. They just ripped people apart when it was the two of them on that show.
Tracy was very kind and gentle when ripping their heart out, and then Matt was just a bludgeon, you know, like he wasn't putting up with the shit.
The good cop, bad cop. Yeah. Okay. So, and what made you want to start a YouTube channel and be vocal about this thing?
Honestly, it was I had a desire for some reason. I kind of wanted to make content. I think because I watch a lot of YouTube. Like that's my main source of media, you know? Like I don't really have a TV. Like a lot of everything I consume is usually on YouTube or something like that, something streaming. So I saw, like I said, I saw the other like survival channels and shit like that, and there's always this Christian undertone. There was always this Christian message. There was Bible verses like in the, you know, in the little watermarks on the screen and shit. And it was like, man, you know, like I'm passionate enough about my atheism that I don't want to contribute to people that are preaching. You know what I mean? Like it's fine if they're a Christian and just putting good information out, but like I don't want the Bible lesson. And I know that that Bible lesson comes with hating gay people, hating trans people, hating, you know, you name the minority and they can find a religious reason to hate them. So, you know, like that's was my motivation, was more or less to create a safe spot for non-believers, LGBTQ communities, minorities, and people to get outdoor survival information without the bigotry.
That's a good motivation, I think. On that note, I don't want to necessarily mention anybody specifically, but what do you think about atheist content creators who are still bigoted, who still have negative things to say to like the LGBTQIA plus community and things like that?
I mean, I got no room for them in my world. You know what I mean? Like a bigot's a bigot to me. Like if if I'm sitting down at the table and being kind to a Nazi, there's not just one Nazi in the room, there's two Nazis in the room. You know, there's if you're sympathizing with a fucking Nazi, you're a Nazi. So fuck you. And like that's my opinion on it. And like if you're a transphobe and you're hating on trans people, fuck you. You know, like I don't want you on my channel, you know what I mean? Like if it makes you butthurt that I am an ally, and you know, I put that in the description of my channel for a reason. So if you read that and you get yucked out about it or whatever the fuck, well, you know, there's 1,000 other fucking, you know, outdoor YouTube channels you can go fucking look at and get a Bible verse with your fucking feather stick video or whatever the fuck you want to do, you know? Like I can't understand how an atheist, somebody in a minority group, somebody that gets looked at weirdly for not believing in this God, and you're passionate enough about that that you don't like this Bible character being pushed on you, but direct hatred from that Bible is what's making them hate the LGBTQ community. So whenever you start eating that bullshit and believing it, you're directly eating from the butt of Christianity. You know, that's what bigotry is.
I agree there. I like to think that maybe we can still re-educate Nazis and bigots, but I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence for it. So maybe walk that one back to. I hope that we could.
We can talk about it. I am evidence for it. I was attempted to be recruited by Nazis when I was in the army. There's a big problem with white supremacy and shit among the ranks in the military, not just the army, like all branches. And luckily, by that point, I was already a non-believer. So they started trying. I don't know if you're familiar with. Are you familiar with any of the like white power fucking website horseshit? Like any of them?
Yeah, I've seen some of the websites. I've actually had a couple of like skinheads or woods, we call them out here, that are actually in the prison gangs. They've tried to recruit me before, so I'm fairly familiar.
Gotcha. It was that Stormfront bullshit, like old school. It looks like a fucking 4chan message board. But they directed me at that, and like I immediately noticed the Christian talking points in the white supremacy talking points. So that turned me off of it immediately. And I already had a lot of black and Mexican friends in the army. So I was like, fuck that. I'm not being friends with my buddies because you're saying that, white people are better or whatever the fuck. So it just didn't stick at all. But like I was at a spot where I had to stay with these people in their house. And the one dude was from Oklahoma and the other dude was from Texas, and they were trying to really get me into this fucking bullshit, and I wasn't having it. And I ETS'd from the army, and I didn't need to surf on their couch anymore, so I rolled out. But yeah. But for a while, like before I was an atheist, like I was into that. I was kind of into that that skinhead shit, like the boots with the white laces, the fucking shaved head and shit. Like I was drinking the Kool-Aid, and at one point before I got into the army, I would have it would have worked.
That's interesting. I've got some history with I am into the skinhead music, like the traditional skinhead music, not the racist skinhead music, because there's a differentiation there. And because I was into punk rock, I totally I had kind of an affinity for that style, right? Because it's very much like a similar style. So one of my good friends from childhood, now who's gone into the army, he went into the army as a racist, and now he's a kind of he's a leader, he's a squad leader, but he's converted from racism, and he's just adapted that to a nationalistic ideology. And so I guess the army kind of snapped him out of racism because he had to lead various people of different.
You don't just have to lead them. Like your life depends on those people. Like you cannot. If you're a racist to this black dude, your life is in that black dude's hands. He might see somebody that's sneaking up on your ass about to get you. Like you can't be. It just doesn't work in the army. But it does though, because it's like compartmentalized racism, I guess maybe you would call it. Because these fuckers that were trying to recruit me, they had black people in their teams and in their squads, and they were racist towards them to me, but they were not racist towards them to their faces.
Do you think we all harbor a little bit of that? Like, even if we're consciously trying not to, we're still going to harbor some kind of internalized racism.
I definitely think there is a difference between saying some racist shit and being a racist. You might pop off and say something dumb, but that doesn't mean that you're, an actual neo-Nazi or anything, crazy like that. Like anything, I suppose it's a spectrum. Everybody's going to have their little prejudices and biases and things like that.
Yeah, we're all going to be born with, or I guess I brought up with a degree of bias, I guess is the term that we'd use there. So as far as like, well, I mean, racism is like an older phenomenon, but as far as like transphobia, I guess homophobia is pretty old too. But as
I,
like we have I think a more surface level understanding of like trans issues, and certain people who want to speak about that and act like they have some authority on the subject who really just don't know what they're talking about, right? Like I see some of that in the atheist community where and I've had it myself, or even trying to be allies, sometimes we could just make ignorant statements
yeah,
and and look the wrong way about it. So like, do you think, I guess the question I'm asking is in regards to trans rights, trans identity, and non-binary rights, non-binary identity. Do you think there might just be more general ignorance um, out there, and we're just not knowledgeable enough um, to make informed statements about this? Maybe even in the atheist community.
I I think ignorance is at the root of all of it, and I think that homophobia is just recycled racism, and transphobia is just recycled racism. I think that's what you're seeing. You know, they're making an other, they're making that group the other, and then they're attacking them. And that's not just a group; it's a minority group. It's a tiny group of people, and they're losing their minds and acting like women are trying to take over the WNBA or fucking some bullshit when there's like one athlete in this particular thing that's not even basketball, and they're losing their mind about, like, it's insane to me. It's the same thing as like the old Reefer Madness videos when the black men were going to come and give your wife the Mary Jane and get her all high and take your old lady and stuff. It's this insane fucking idea. I don't see a whole lot of difference between racism, transphobia, other than the racism is more deeply rooted. Like we brought slaves over and treated them like shit, like that is a reality. And like I don't know, I don't want to say too much and end up talking out of my ass, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, it happens. No, I get what you're saying. I mean, there's right, bigotry is bigotry. I mean, I get that. And thanks to Maynard Saves. Yes, it's one of my favorite avatars I've found. Thought it was appropriate. Thanks to Atheist Mo and Slew Suffer in the comments. Okay, so bigotry, like when you say, I don't remember if you said it's like an extension of or a whole like I don't think trans and homophobia are directly related to racism. They are related, but you could have there's some differentiation in the mentality, but I mean they're both based on like weird moral views, weird superstitions that have nothing to do with anything to do with reality, right? They're based on people's personal preferences or what they've been taught as children or growing up or whatever, right?
Well, like the bigotry could compound, right? Like, so the trans person could be black. So you got a trans woman that's black. So now your bigotries have compounded on each other. You know what I mean? So you're not just a trans person, because sometimes they will treat a trans man a little different than they do a trans woman. So you run into those weird circles of thought that I don't know. And to your point that it's different than racism. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I don't know the right words of how to put it. I don't think.
Well, that's interesting you said that though, because yeah, absolutely, it can and does compound probably more often than not. So that's why I mean I guess it in the mind of the people who harbor that ideology, it probably is like very much the same. Like to us, we can see that you're talking about two different groups of people, but if there's an overlap, if there's any any reason that racist could blame trans ideology for the degradation of society or something like that, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna go for it. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's any real thing to put your. I think there's a few fires that you got to put out in that realm of people hating on people that are different than them, and not wanting to listen to someone that's telling you, "Hey, I identify as this." You know, like I identify as basically a cis het man. So like, I don't have to fucking think about that shit. But people that do think about that shit, that feel that they are not born as the gender they are assigned, then you run into these gray areas that I don't understand from experience, but I have to take that person's word for it that they are experiencing this, and that you at least got to respect what somebody wants to be called. Like, fuck, man. Like, it's like to me it's just like they'll respect Kanye wanting to be called Ye. They're fine with that. They'll switch that up. They'll switch their fucking talking pattern to fit that. Why won't you call that person they them instead of she? Why won't you call that person they them instead of he? Why won't you call him her? Why won't you you know what I mean? Like, why will you make your exceptions for some asshole and not for just some person that wants to be called what they identify as?
So I missed the bus on that one. I totally thought that people calling Kanye E were like mocking him or something. But so like yeah, if somebody changes their name, we generally tend to respect that unless they're trans, and then people want to dead name them for some weird reason, right? Like what it's an ass backward thing.
I don't get it. Like, no.
Well, I think we agree there, and we don't want to, browbeat those who aren't present too badly. But it's like,
Yeah.
get over yourselves, and if you want to debate about it, come by. Transphobia, homophobia is it's not intelligent, and it's not a good look. Whoever you are, wherever you are, don't do it.
Stop it. It's not a good look.
So let's talk about weed. I love weed. You love weed, right? What did you smoke before you went into the army, or is this a post?
I did. I smoked, let's see, probably from 17ish. Well, no, I probably about 16. I probably started smoking weed, and I think I joined. I actually signed the papers to join the army when I was 17, but I smoked all the way up until I flew out to basic training, and then I quit for a long, for my tour of duty, and then I came home and started right back up.
Was it difficult for you to not smoke, or did you ever feel like you were missing something when you didn't have it? I guess when you're out there.
I mean, not really. Like I said, I was pretty young, so I hadn't been smoking for that long. I think it'd be harder on me now, but like back then it was like kind of new to me, and I just knew like they don't want me to do it, so I'm going to get in trouble, so I just fucking quit. Like, but there was no, there wasn't no withdrawals or any crazy shit. It was more I just kind of wanted that buzz again, but it it wasn't anything more than that. Like, I don't know. It was pretty easy. And I've quit since. I had to get a job at Cabela's one time, if you know what that is, the outdoor store. And
Yeah.
they make you put in a cup. So I quit for 13 days, I think, and was able to pass a piss test and passed it and started up again. Like, it's always
13.
been pretty good to me.
That's cool. Somebody was telling me it only takes 2 weeks, and I was like, we always heard 30 days when we were. But I guess it depends on what levels of THC they're really testing for.
It depends on your body fat because
Okay.
THC is fat soluble, and like something like cocaine or something like that is water soluble, so you can just sweat and piss it out. But THC actually clings to your fat cells, so you have to burn it off.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So somebody who doesn't necessarily have much adipose tissue is gonna you'll metabolize it faster, right? But
That see, I did that, and I knew what I was doing. I drank a lot of water and was like trying to get my system flushed good, and I was working out like 2 times a day in a enclosed hot garage, and I was doing it to sweat my ass off for 2 weeks so I could pass that piss test.
got you. Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about that myself because I'm going in for a state job later on this month. I'm still in the testing phase, but you know, once they go through that, they're gonna want to do the drug test, and I'm like, man, I don't have enough time. Do I have enough time to clear this? Uh, you know, most I'm out here in California. Most employers really don't care about pot, but the state is one of those few exceptions.
You can die if they're not too picky about it. You can drink a whole bunch of water and dilute it. But if their test comes back diluted, they're going to make you pee again.
Right. Right. Okay, makes sense.
But you can drink a shitload of water and just piss basically straight water, and they won't detect it. But if they detect that it's too much water, they might send it back.
Wow. Okay, that's something I did not know about the urinalysis. All right, cool. What's your favorite brand of weed, or do you have a favorite like strain or?
I'm kind of honestly, I'm kind of new with the strains. Like I've known they existed and whatnot, but it's just I still get my stuff usually from the black market, you know. So there's not sometimes the dude don't know what it is. But when I know what it is, like I started to do that little part of my rips and sips where I'll have like a strain awareness, and I'll talk about a certain strain and show pictures and hit it for the first time on camera and just like document what I think about it. And gelato is one of my favorites for sure. Like the smell, the taste, it's pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I sometimes find I don't know if you have a lot of dispensaries where you're at. We have the dispensaries out here, and they seem to kind of try to rebrand old flavors. So it's like I can get something that I used to call Purple Kush, but they're going to call it like Granddaddy Perps or Grape something or something or other. Like, but it's all the same kind of Purple Kush. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they have like time for it. Yeah, because I've heard of a few. Oh, and Jack Herer. Have you heard of that strain?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that one.
I like that one too. I was just saying that. But yeah, like people start making slang names for them and shit. And like around here, I know this one hillbilly was just making up names because like I was googling them and they were like non-existent. He was just like making up fucking like just goofy names and calling his weed that. And it was something, you know, he was getting seeds from somebody, but he was just calling it something because he didn't understand the genetics that this is really a thing, that somebody isn't just calling weed a name, that these are lineages of genetics that are going into this. But he was just fucking coming off with wild names for weed.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, especially with the market for like edibles and concentrates. Because I can understand it more with a concentrate. Where you're like, well, yeah, this is the essence of a purple. We're gonna call it, you know, I don't know, Baby Yoda or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's cool. That's a pop culture reference. I get it, but you know, you're kind of dumbing down the science behind it, though. There is a science behind growing and cultivating pot.
Yeah, and like there's a difference between me taking this seed and growing plants and then crossing those two. Like that doesn't make you an F1 hybrid. You know what I mean? Like you need two F1 hybrids, cross those, and you got, if you don't know what that is, you'll have to look up what F1 hybrids is, because I don't even fucking know really. But like, you need that pure crossing of the genes to get that strain that you want, But I'm dumbing it down now. Like, I don't really know the particulars.
That was a fair explanation. What's up, Ox? Good to see you. I love that comment. Strange genes come from the mothers of whose basements they are developed in. Yeah, I mean, well, I can't talk shit because I used to grow pot with my mom, but I mean, I was actually a teenager back then. But do you think there's, or in your experience, I guess I'd ask, is there any overlap there? Were your parents for or against weed? Is there a religious reason, or like, or
my mom was never for weed. She always believed the hype, like whatever anti-drug commercials or whatever bullshit they were spitting at the church, she believed it. But my dad was a Vietnam veteran from the Navy, and he had experience with it, and he didn't give a shit about it. Like, but mom looked down upon him and would get me to look down at him because of it and shit like that. So it was not encouraged in my family. My grandma and grandpa didn't know anything about it, so they hated it. Like, it was always looked down upon.
Yeah, I find there's some weirdness there, like a disconnect in my life where, like, my mom used to be the hippie mom, and now she's into the church, and so she's, she still smokes occasionally. She's okay with it, but outwardly she tries to, she wants to be very secretive about it. She's worried about what the folks at church will say and all that good stuff. Whereas my dad was a real hard ass, and my parents weren't together, by the way, so this is kind of like a separated family. But every time I would go to my dad's, it was always like, no, like, I smell that shit on you. Get it out of here. I don't want it in my house. All this stuff. But as it turns out, my dad's actually like more ideologically liberal. But because of his work, his job, he was a driver for many years, and now he's a dispatcher. It just wasn't acceptable for him, and he had to keep it away from himself. So really, his aversion to pot was the only way he could keep himself from smoking pot. Like, so he always had to come down on me about it. It was like
hating on you. But yeah, like, it was kind of the opposite with me. Like, I think if my dad would have kept his mental health throughout his life, me and him would have probably ended up smoking together, because I imagine he probably still did and just kept it hidden because both of his in-laws plus his wife were completely against it. So, but he would tell me stories, like whenever he was in the Navy out in San Diego, like smoking weed and surfing, like he would tell me shit about it. So I know he did, and I know he, once you smoke weed, it's not heroin, it's not meth. Like, so they try to lump it into that category, the right wingers that have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And like, I think, like I said earlier, I mentioned the Reefer Madness film. Did you ever watch that?
Oh yeah, love Reefer Madness and the remake with the guy from Wings. I'm forgetting his name now, but both of them are really good. The original and the remake.
I watched the original, but like, there are old people that believe that. You know what I mean? There are old people that believe that Reefer Madness movie, that old one, that they think, it's this crazy drug from Mexico that, jazz players are pushing on white women to steal them from their man and shit. It's like craziness. There was a lot of like racist dog whistles in that fucking movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that movie is like, and not just racist. I mean, it's infused with sexism, just so much terrible stereotype going on in that film.
But
I think viewed it, when I was a teenager, I was stoned, and I looked at it like a satire. Like it doesn't look serious to me, but yeah, like
And you're
you're saying,
high on the thing that they're saying does all these crazy effects, and you're like, what? Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like,
yeah, weed's never made me flip out and want to jump out of a window in handcuffs or anything like that. But uh, yeah, so where do you think? Well, I don't know, maybe historical or something, but this they call it the devil's lettuce. The devil's lettuce. I've always loved that one. Do you know any precedent behind that, or have you heard that before?
I've definitely heard it, but it just like once I became like a non-believer, the devil's anything just doesn't hold the same weight that it used to. Like the devil's anything is like saying, Bigfoot's something. Like it's Bigfoot's lettuce. All right. Like whatever.
Yeah, and I guess they're just referencing like essentially temptation, right? And that's the first thing that happens in the Bible in the garden, the snake and the fruit, and there's temptation, and then people call weed the gateway drug. So they're saying, okay, once you try this, you'll try anything, right? Which is it's not. Most of the pot people are like, I'm still not doing heroin. I'm still not doing meth. You know what I mean?
According to that logic, though, wouldn't cigarettes be like a gateway drug?
I think cigarettes probably are the gateway drug if there is one.
We wouldn't know how to smoke nothing if it wasn't for tobacco. You know what I mean? Like tobacco was the first thing we started smoking, and then we rolled. There's ways to intake marijuana that's not smoking it. So like, I think tobacco would have been the gateway drug, if anything. But I don't really buy into the gateway drug claim because, like you said, like anybody that's going to do heroin tomorrow is probably doing heroin today. Like, I don't think anybody, like, if they legalize heroin tomorrow, I ain't going to fucking do it. But I'm a recovered junkie, so there's that too.
Heroin is one I personally have never tried, and I always said that I won't try it because I would probably have a personality type that would get hooked. But also, on the flip side of that, the one time I did take OxyContin years and years ago, I got violently ill. So I think maybe luckily I'm allergic to that, or it would take me more time to get used to than
It'll make you throw up. Like if you take a little bit too much, it'll make you sick and you'll throw up. But like if you had OxyContin, you basically had heroin because OxyContin is synthetic heroin. It's an opiate. It's derived from the same shit. Like it's just a pure form that they didn't stomp with some other bullshit that they put in it. Because I was hooked on opioids and crack cocaine for 7 years, I think, and I got clean in 2013. And I only smoke weed and drink beer now.
Okay.
Did you say something? You still there, man? All right. I don't even know if I'm still live. Am I still live? Are we still good? We still live?
My bad. Yes, we are still live. I got kicked out of the studio. Okay.
All of a sudden, I was the only thing on the screen. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. So we okay. So backing it up, the last thing I heard was you smoke weed, drink beer. Okay, I get that. I do as well. And so you said you were addicted to crack and heroin. Um, so
Yeah,
how long roughly were you
I
addicted?
would. I was addicted for like 7 years, and I was basically what I was doing was I would do opioids and heroin. Like I would do OxyContin, heroin. We called them Roxys. They were IR Percocets that just didn't have any of the like Tylenol buffer in them. They were just pure opiate. I would snort those or shoot them until I would start nodding out, is what we would call it. If you're familiar with that term, like you would just start eventually nodding and passing out. Whenever I would start passing out, I would load up the crack pipe and wake myself up with crack so I could in turn do more heroin or opiates or whatever the fuck. And I chased that bullshit for 7 years, just basically spending every dime I had from my job to support it, and stealing and uh, doing all the hillbilly shit, stealing cars and scrapping them, doing fucking wild shit.
Damn, all right. You got some history there. So yeah, like I said, I never did heroin. I did crack, but I never felt I was like addicted to crack. Like crack and coke were like I could always take it or leave it. But I did get hooked on methamphetamine, on speed for off and on for a while. Actually, like really like put a reset on my life. I felt like addiction really solidified atheism for me because at a certain point in time, I was coming out of a bad relationship. I was still hooked on dope. Donald Trump was probably going to become the next president of the United States. And I was like, is this reality? Like, what's really going on here? And it really made me reevaluate everything, my whole world. And so getting clean really, for me, like solidified, I've got to say, outwardly, I do not believe in any of this woo bullshit, right? Like that was kind of where it came from. And I feel like I conflate so much of that story. Like I was on Neil 604 Atheist channel like a while ago. And when I was doing my deconversion story, it just ended up being listen to my crazy drug story. But it was like, but when you get clean, like you really have to reassess reality, I think. Like, did you have any kind of similar experience with that?
Oh yeah, man. Like I was not thinking clearly, to put it mildly. Like whenever I was in the full throes of addiction and stealing to get money to supply myself, like I was not the person that you're talking to right now. That's for fucking sure. Like it I don't even know. I don't know that person no more. But like back then, like I would rob you if I thought I could get away with it. I would whatever it took. It didn't matter. And I fortunately have done a big turnaround from that, and like it's it's something like addictions, like if there's a god, it's a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Like if there's a god out there, he is a total shitbag. He created addiction and gave it to us. He created babies and then created cancer and gave cancer to babies. He created babies and then created AIDS and then gave AIDS to babies. What a piece of shit God would it be if it was real?
Hey, I feel the same way. I mean, he'd have to be a, a pretty. He's a dick. He's a dick. God's a dick. Um, I've kind of. I think I've always felt that way. Like even when I was still in question when I was a kid, and I wanted to have faith or whatever. I say it was like spiritual. Never like deeply religious. But even that God is still, there's still a certain level of suffering, which he could prevent it. It didn't have to exist. God causes our suffering as well as anything else that happens according to that story. And it's like, why? Why? And
Well,
you can't really find a reason why. You just have to jump through all these mental gymnastics to try and justify it.
That reminds me of like what I was going to say. I forgot earlier. Like with my deconversion, what planted the seed very early in my life. It didn't make me disbelieve, but it made me angry at the God that I thought was there. Like I was very young, probably like 6 or 7, and my grandpa never went to church. And like I love my grandpa, and he's since passed, but like I love that man, and he never went to church. And I asked my grandma one time if Pap was going to hell because he didn't go to church, and she dead cold looked me in the eyes and said, "Yeah, like yeah, we need to get him up there." And little 6-year-old me is like trying to save my grandpa's fucking soul now. You know what I mean? Like it was fucking me up back then, but then it made me angry. It steeled my resolve, and I was like, you know what? If I would rather burn in hell than go to heaven with any of you motherfuckers. I will go to hell with my grandpa because I love him, and fuck all you. And like that was my outlook for a long time. And then eventually, once that team leader later on in life in the army said that to me, it just was like bang, fuck all of them. Like I was ready to give it up then.
Yeah, there's a. I just had it on the tip of my tongue too. If everyone around you is insane, there's an axiom there, but I lost it anyway.
Insane when
they
you
can
would be the insane person.
As you said in the beginning, as your team leader said, they can all be wrong. That is certainly possible, and that would make you like the one arbiter of truth in a sea of freaking weirdos that don't know what they're talking about. And that's the way it seems in the U.S. Not to get like super political with it, but I do feel like on a lot of levels that's you're trying to just dial back this clock, this ticking time bomb of religious insanity that's insidious in U.S. politics, right? And
Armageddon, like they believe in Armageddon, like they believe like they're going to do battle in Armageddon or whatever the fuck the battlefield is in fucking Jerusalem or wherever the fuck it is. I'm kind of rusty on my Bible geography, but I know that's something to do with it. Like they think the end times are coming.
yeah, and they live by that. They live by that, and I've known people like that, and it scares me now to think that
we saw a bunch of them on January 6th.
Right? Yeah, and they're active. They're active and they're vocal. They're not actually afraid to vocalize. And it's like the people that I've known that were Christian, I was usually arguing with them about like the God concept, which I think it's like it seems like the most benign concept when they believe in these like crazy conspiracy theories and well, the Armageddon theory comes from the Bible, but that's just because they want to be with God. And it's like, well, if you want to be with God, then, just go.
How about it?
Yeah.
Know how to get there, motherfucker. God.
It's like, you don't have to take all of us with you. Like, that's like a suicide pact.
Yeah, I don't know. And then like I've heard tales of like people that their like mom and dad took them up to a cave and like hid in a cave for like a month because they thought Armageddon was coming because of some political happening or something that they saw on the news. And then they just kind of eventually came out of the cave and went back home like nothing fucking happened.
Yeah, it's like if the whole world's going to be obliterated in fire, right? And God is everywhere, then how do you think that hiding in a cave is going to help you, or a bunker or a shelter or whatever? Like,
right? Just look at drones. You can't even hide from a fucking drone.
Yeah, to get you anything
omnipotent.
Well, this has been fun. We're meeting the hour mark, and I literally got out of bed and came to do this. I apologize for my tardiness. I was it's been rough with dialing back on the meds and stuff. But I think it's a good point to wrap. Ox has a call from the wife. So our singular viewer, from what I could tell right now. But we did have Maynard Saves earlier. We had Atheist Mo, Slew Suffer. I'll be on with Atheist Mo later on tonight. That's in the Paradigm. It's directly opposite to this. This one was scheduled for 9 a.m. Atheist Mo, I got you scheduled for 9 p.m. So hopefully we'll be able to put that together. Look at the trees. Do you want to shill? Do you have any videos coming out? Anything you want to put out there before we go?
Not really. Just check out my channel. If you got, did you put the link in the thing? I mean, other than that, yeah, check out my channel. I'll be putting videos out whenever I can. So I'll probably have another one out today.
Sweet. If there's not a link in the box, there will be as soon as I end the stream. I'll go and do that. I think I put the @ mention, but it doesn't work until because on StreamYard it doesn't work. I have to edit it on YouTube, I think, is what the deal is there. So put that out. Check out Look at the Trees channel. Thank you to people who came by and will come by later. Usually we get a few restreams, so we should get some stuff out there. Thanks for coming by. Smoke weed every day, as Brojo always says. If you don't know, check out Brojo. Most of the people here probably know Brojo. Fun times over there. Do you go to Brojo's channel?
I don't. I've seen him in chat a couple times. I just never wandered over there. I might have to.
Yeah, 420 Cafe gets interesting. He does long form streams. So you could be just like chatting about stuff like we were earlier, and then all of a sudden a religious debate sparks off or something. It's just so. Yeah, I definitely recommend 420 Cafe if you get over there. Recommend Look at the Trees. Ending the stream, we'll play a video, and then we could talk backstage for a minute if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Be well, stay trusty, as I always say. Don't be a stupid monkey.
It's like banging a tennis ball against a brick wall. It can be fun, but it's not a game.
Food, yeah, it's a fundraiser, That's why I'm here, really. We're seeking so much help, for food and stuff like that. It really is. It's just, it's food stuff, really. And like aspirin would be nice, actually, because we've been both having